Hey guys, my name's Baxter. I'm an accredited practicing dietitian and online physique coach, and today I wanted to talk to you about females and resistance training. I've been getting a lot of questions lately from clients and just generally people contacting me on social media asking whether they should actually change up their training programs. What I find frustrating is that despite there being a wealth of information available that proves or disproves the fact that women need to train differently, there is still this common misconception that males should train differently to females, and it's simply not the case. At the moment, the desire for females to have a really good lean physique is just as much of a thing as it is for men. And I use the word toned, not muscular, throughout this, because I feel like when you use the word muscular when it comes to describing females, most women will have a small complex, and it usually is associated with the mental imagery of, I don't know, a fully jacked bodybuilder, like a female bodybuilder who has like a jawline that would rival Sylvester Stallone. However, I'm using toned for the purposes of this discussion. What I'm typically seeing is that women are doing some kind of resistance training, and there is some kind of emphasis placed on this, but the volumes are ridiculously high, far higher than what is necessary. It's typically achieved through really high rep ranges and really low loads, so maybe like somewhere between 12 to 15 reps, but very light weights, and lots of drop sets, forced reps, and things like this, and also tons of cardio. I think most of the clients that have started working with me have had like a minimum of maybe 10 hours at least kind of as their set training, and it's just a lot to manage, particularly if you're trying to balance time commitments and having some kind of a life outside of exercise. So where to start? I think the sad thing about it is a lot of this mentality or misconception is because of social media. So how many times have you seen your favorite fitness celebrity posting about their superior dietary strategy or their new training methods, and they're using bands, they're using chains, they're talking about drop sets, they're talking about tension, time, etc., etc. What frustrates me is that the large majority, and in most cases, but certainly not all, these have just been regular fitness enthusiasts. So they've had normal day jobs and they have promoted their success from their competitions in an online sense. But the information that they're sharing with you is largely based on personal experience, and it's not actually or does not have any scientific merit or validation to support their claims. And you'll notice I don't follow very many people on social media, but those I do, it's usually because they provide other valuable educational information. There's a couple on there I just follow because they're just hot, and it's good to have someone to motivate you. But it does make me frustrated when I see people posting about things that have no scientific backing, or if they'll put up a picture or talking about the supplement sponsors new fat burner or a carb blocker or something like that, because for anyone with an academic background that has a really sound understanding of human anatomy and physiology and biochemistry, these things do not work. They're not scientifically proven. They have no scientific merit. So when it comes to training, I want to just go through the hard facts about what women need to do in order to achieve the toned and shapely physique that they are searching for. Muscle hypertrophy can actually be attained through a wide variety of different resistance training programs. In fact, the principle of specificity says that muscular adaptation is specific to the applied stimuli, and that some training programs are in fact better than others. So our skeletal muscle tissue is post-mitotic, and basically this means it's not designed to turn over or undergo any significant cell replacement, unlike other tissue within our body. So as a result, it needs to have an efficient mechanism or method to repair itself, so it can maintain its mass and not result in cellular death or cellular apoptosis. So the maintenance of this tissue is carried out by the dynamic balance of muscle protein synthesis and muscle protein degradation. And for muscle hypertrophy to occur, muscle protein synthesis needs to exceed the amount of breakdown or degradation taking place. And unfortunately, cardiovascular exercise like walking, swimming, bike riding, or anything that keeps your heart rate at a fairly steady pace is not going to elicit any of those pathways necessary for muscle hypertrophy to take place, or certainly not significantly anyway. So of course, things like your age, your gender, and your genetic background, they are going to have some kind of impact in how well you're able to induce that muscle hypertrophy. But it is consistent resistance training, that mechanical tension, stress, overload, that initiates or mediates that hypertrophic response necessary for toned legs, a nice shapely butt, and a flat stomach. So is it possible for females to achieve muscle hypertrophy because of our hormones? Now, resistance training has been shown to elevate certain concentrations of hormones like growth factor, testosterone, IGF-1, and these are hypothesized to drive muscle hypertrophy. And since females naturally have lower levels of these particular hormones, and certainly testosterone, it's been alleged that women or females are not able to achieve the same outcomes from resistance training as men and should therefore train differently, but it's not the case. Now, while these hormones are thought to be anabolic during puberty, and certainly when administered in supraphysiological exogenous ways, aka steroids, a study by West in 2010 and others have been able to show that the transient rise in the concentrations in a post-resistance setting are not related to or not the driver of muscle hypertrophy. Instead, it's the acute activation of these stress-imposed signaling proteins and other local mechanisms in combination with sufficient dietary intakes of protein and amino acids that are what are the drivers of muscle hypertrophy. And this is for both men and women as well. People often ask, is training at a lower rep range with a higher load more superior for building muscle than training with higher reps and a lighter load? Well, the answer is actually awesome. And in fact, the research shows that for a volume matched powerlifting program, remember volume equals reps times set times weight, the powerlifting program actually will elicit the exact same response as a bodybuilding program, but that's when they are performed to failure. So for example, we might be looking at a bodybuilder who is doing, say, 3x10, I'll use the example from before, at an RPE 9, and then a powerlifter would do, say, 7 sets by 3 at a particular weight, as long as the volume is matched. As long as they're performing that to failure, you should actually achieve the same kind of outcome when it comes to muscle hypertrophy. With my training programs, personally, I like to recommend using a combination of both, because what was significantly different between these two styles of programs is that the powerlifting program yields more significant strength gains, particularly when it comes to a 1 rep max effort. So why would you do higher reps if lower rep based training elicits the same response? Well, the answer is it takes a lot more sets. Now, in the publication by Schoenfield that I'm thinking of, their powerlifting group had to perform 7 sets of 3 in order to match the volume performed by the bodybuilding group that did 3 sets of 10. So high rep training is a more efficient way of working out. So now I wanted to talk to you guys about cardio, when it's necessary and why and how much. So obviously when you do cardiovascular exercise, this is great for your fitness, and anything that you do, if you do cardio, any kind of activity is going to feel a lot easier if you have a good base level of fitness. Now, exercise at a high intensiveness or intervals of high intensity are going to be more time efficient if you are trying to balance your time commitments and life with health and physique benefits. Obviously, this is going to be more energy taxing and require more energy for a time equated, long, slow, steady state. So for example, just going for a walk or a swim or a light game of tennis or something like that. I usually do around 90 minutes in total for the week, just to keep my fitness up. I love how I feel after a high intensity workout. I love the challenge, and it also gives me the mental break that I need from my resistance training. It obviously, doing too much of anything can become a little bit monotonous, and it keeps my motivation there and fresh when I come back to the gym for my weights training program. So when should you actually use cardiovascular training? Well, cardio can help to elicit or create a caloric deficit, but understand that it's actually not necessary to create a calorie deficit. We can do this through dietary strategy alone. However, if you choose to create a caloric deficit from dieting without any accompanied cardio or exercise, it means that you're going to have to be far more restrictive with your calories. It means that your food choices are probably going to be more limited, and probably fewer meal frequency or fewer meal occasions as well. So my recommendation is to use cardio, for fitness, if you enjoy it. Obviously, I still like to include 90 minutes, but use it as a tool for keeping yourself in a caloric deficit. Because for most of us, we like to eat. It gives back a little bit of freedom with your food choices. So rather than trying to diet and lose weight or body fat just by dieting alone, obviously this can enhance that caloric deficit or enable us to eat more and maintain the same caloric deficit. Hopefully that makes sense. As for how much cardio you should do, this is going to be variable from person to person. But it will depend on your metabolism, how much body fat you would like to lose, and what time frame you would like to lose it in. And I will say that if the amount of activity that you feel like you have to do each week in order to keep yourself in a caloric deficit feels excessive, so greater than say 12 hours a week, it is probably time to seek expert advice and perhaps undertake a reverse diet for some metabolic correction. So in summary of today, I just want to say that resistance training is a highly effective strategy for both men and women when it comes to building a lean and toned physique. Women do not need to train differently. Now, if you are one of the 1% female population that is able to maintain their lean muscle mass very well, then my recommendations for you would be to train less. If you feel like you're super muscular in one particular area of your body, not to be confused with you're carrying a lot of body fat in that particular area, then train less. Reduce your volume on those particular muscle groups, just as you would increase the volume if you feel like you're needing to find or to increase a particular muscle group. Now, I know a lot of women really fret about becoming too bulky. You see it in client forums all the time. I want to get muscle, but I don't want to be too bulky.
body fat is what looks bulky, not muscle. In fact, a woman that has a high muscle mass will look far more toned because proportionately they have more muscle than they do body fat. So just to give you an example, if I have 10 kilograms of body fat, but I also have 50 kilos of lean muscle, I'm going to look more muscular or more toned than somebody that has 10 kilos of body fat and only 40 kilos of lean muscle, because proportionately I have less body fat. For the most part, it's actually very difficult for females to get bulky, unless of course you are part of that 1% population that retains their muscle very well. Thank you very much for watching. If you found this useful, please share it with your friends. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also contact me or head to my website, which is www.hbnutrition.com.au. I have all of my nutrition coaching programs available online with the costings. I have a brand new ebook that you can also purchase if you're looking for macro-friendly recipes. That's a 52-page ebook, so lots of options and variety in there. And as well as an online meal plan generator. So if you're looking for some support for recipe ideas and to have your macros calculated, there's also that on my website too. Ladies, don't be afraid to lift heavy. Mix up your trainings. There are no magic training programs out there with bands and all those kind of things. They're all just tools in the toolbox. So enjoy your training, train with a program, and I hope to see you next time.